Good evening, everybody. Good evening. What is this on my face? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Erudition Network. I am Eddie Phillips. This is the Thursday Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge session. We do this session every Thursday to talk about Black history and to provide you knowledge and understanding on things that you may not have learned in school or things that you may not have a really full understanding of, and more importantly, just in the idea of teaching our history. I was on, if you have seen me throughout the day today, you may have seen that I was did a couple of reels, different shorts, different things, trying to encourage folks to participate in the interactive. This is a interactive broadcast, and what that means is that we have people who can come on and ask questions about history, particularly Black history, and to learn some things that maybe you know you didn't get a chance to learn. Maybe there were things that you wanted to know about Black history, and this being Black History Month, this is an optimal time to get on and learn some of these things. But as I said, this is an interactive broadcast. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to make sure that you have an opportunity to let your voice be heard. We want you to have the opportunity to jump in and give criticism, give opinion, give opine, to talk about what is going on. You can join us either on YouTube. You can join us here, obviously, on Facebook. We're on Facebook. Um, we're we want to hear from you. We want your input, influence, thoughts. We want you to play a part in this monumental program. I tell people very often, I don't see, and I have to correct myself because I'm going to tell you why I have to correct myself. I used to say that we don't see a lot of people, a lot of historians getting on to teach history, right? And I'm wrong with that because we have so called people getting on all over the internet, right? We have so called people getting on all over the internet, and they are um, putting out opinion, falsity, fallacy, um, guised as real history, and it is being sent out to the populace, the Vox Populi. And unfortunately, because there is no one that's getting on to challenge that, things are being said that are just ludicrous. There is not a day that I don't get on and see somebody put out some ludicrous opine about Black history. And more importantly, there's not a time that I get on and I don't see someone do it whilst people are actually sharing it. Thousands of people. So when I do this interactive, I ask myself the question, how come I can only get about 3 or 4 people to interact where people are sitting on social media putting out garbage? I'll give you an example. Today, I heard a man just passionately say that it was not Lincoln, but Andrew Johnson, who basically freed the slaves, made things happen, and that is the reason why Johnson was allowed to be vice president of the United States. And it was him that pushed Reconstruction. And unfortunately, this was a brother, a Black man, out there on TikTok teaching this. My friend Mike Wiley, I was on their show last Friday, talked about people getting on and saying that clearest way to Africa is through the Grand Canyon, or Africa is in the Grand Canyon. And all of this lunacy that is being taught at a time when we're going through hell. I can't be more clearer to you. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. But the fact is that I get on here every Thursday and I'm telling you, if you're not sharing this, if you're not telling your kids or your loved ones and not giving them the information that I give you, there's nothing more I can do for you. If you're not watching and sharing and growing this network, there's nothing more I can really do but give you the information and tell you how important it is. And I shouldn't have to. We have issues going down where people are trying, we see it in the media every day, trying to stop us from teaching history. But more importantly, Black history. This is happening every day. Story came out yesterday that in Jackson, Mississippi, they're trying to create an apartheid system where basically the state's legislature will decide the policies and practices of the 90% Black populace, but all of the officials of the city will be white, including judges. And we get on during Black History Month, and I hear people say it all the time. All the time. Oh, we should teach Black history 365 days a year, 24/7. But when we're actually being taught validated, sourced, factual history, many of us don't have time for that. We don't have time for it. And I am not saying to you, you don't have a life. You don't have important things to do. But what I am saying is that if we don't do better, if we don't take the time to learn, we are going to suffer. We are going to suffer. Because historically in this country, those people of color who sat and did nothing became the oppressed, burdened majority. We're not even questioning what we're being taught because we don't know how. We don't know how. And it is an unfortunate situation, even in our mainstream. Even in our mainstream. Over this past week, I put out I mixed some of the lexicon of what these things are, but I put out, I think it was a reel on Facebook today, in which I spoke about 1619. 1619. Oh, we got people there. Hey, Sean Anthony, good to see you. Thank you, my son, for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, my family is supportive. They get on here, even though they hear me throughout the week spouting and talking about Black history. Today, I'm very, very just free right now because I really want to meet some of you where you are. Yes, happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. Love you. Thank you, babe. I want to be free and open with you and talk to you about the reality of that, the realities that we're facing. The realities that we're facing. We are taking steps back. Here in Colorado, There's a national story right now about a black farmer, black ranchers here in Colorado, where I am, down in Colorado Springs, being harassed for over a year. To which the brother, one of the brothers that owns property, has now been put in jail for responding to this harassment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not living in this post-civil rights world. The civil rights movement has never ended. It has never ended. I'm going to repeat that a third time. It has never ended. It is so important that we learn the things that we learn in Black history, because here's the thing. All of that history helps us to better challenge what we're dealing with today. And if you think that that history is being taught to your kids in school, you are sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken. And I don't know how far I just went into that, but thank you. I don't know how far we need to go with this. I don't know how far we need to go with this. Because I think that if we can't see the importance of Black history, not only to us, but to the world. You know, I have this book right here. And in this book, I know, it has the U.S. Constitution. It has the Declaration of Independence. It has all of these important American writings from the beginning of this country, right? And some, like the Mayflower Compact, right, even before the founding of this country. But what I find to be very, very, very revealing is in every document, every important document that has been written and talked about in the United States, Black folks who are not here with us tonight, who may be watching the replay, you play a part in this. Every decision, every notable document that we laud over the world, such as our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederacy and Perpetual Union, the Bill of Rights, on and on and on and on. Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? Frederick Douglass' speech on the Dred Scott decision, Lincoln's speech, A House Divided, the Gettysburg Address, John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech in the 60s, the Marshall Plan. I can go on and on and on and on. And yet, here I sit every Thursday, trying to get people stirred up. Your kids are not learning history. And maybe because they've marginalized it so much with us, that means nothing to many of us. What does it mean? I got on earlier. What does it mean that Prince Henry the Navigator of Portugal, right, was said to have went around Africa, the first man to ever do that. Why does it mean that that's a lie? What does it mean that the Phoenician Hanno actually wrote detailed notes about going around the coast of Africa? What does it mean that the Bible tells us that Solomon, in friendship with the Phoenician king, sent Israelites around the coast of Africa to meet with what was now known as the Queen of Sheba, who then came to see Solomon? What does it mean that the Phoenicians reached Ireland and England? And we know that they did because they built trading ports, that they were around the Canary Islands. What does it mean that all of this was done in 600 BC? Not 1415, not before, just before or after Columbus. What does it mean that they had these maps? What it means is you have a purpose. You have a purpose. But yet, I had a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine actually, asked me, Eddie, did you watch the 1619 Project? No, I didn't get around to it. Because my history doesn't start, nor does it stop with slavery. I beg people for free. And I know people don't like me to say that, but I beg people to share this program, to grow this important network. And every week I'm reminded just how important it is. Every week I'm reminded by someone's death, by some new law, by some new restriction, by some silly historical statement. I'm reminded how important our history really is. And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me motivated. Earlier this week, I put out a poem by B. Richardson, Thus a Black Woman Speaks. And I put that poem out, and I get a chance to see the analytics, right? Who watches it, who listens to it. Most people will only remember B. Richardson as someone who played a mammy or old woman in some notable films, or she was a comedic actress on Sanford and Son or 227. They will not remember the activist that she was. They will not know that she wrote this powerful poem, spoken word poem, as an advocation to white women to stop hating our race and realize that you are just as trapped as we are under a patriarchal, white, racist society. No one can speak to that more than a Black woman who has had to accept the forced rape by both Black and white men. And I will say that without any fear of reproach, because it's true. And yet, it was shocking to me during Black History Month that very few people click to even listen. 15 minutes of your day. And then we wonder why our society is so tragically inept, why we're having so many violent problems. We wonder. We will go tune in to watch devilry on the Grammys. We will sit down to watch foolishness. We will share foolishness. And yet, when it comes down to teaching this history, I can't get people to come on and even interact or even to listen. I have begged people to come on to the show give your opine. I've opened up the door freely. But I see so much trash. And I don't want to make tonight's show to be a bashing of it, but it's we got to do better. We got to do better. We are at a crossroads here. If we don't do better, if we don't share information, if we don't take the time to learn who we are, it costs you nothing. I'm giving you this knowledge for free. I don't see anybody sitting here talking about Barker Sand writers. I don't see anybody on here talking about chaos theory. I don't see anybody on here talking about fractal. I'm talking about throughout the internet, factually giving you information. I don't see anybody telling you the importance of Black people, the wealth that you bring, the knowledge that you bring. I don't see it. And I've begged you people, I'm begging you to do something that costs you nothing. It's heartbreaking. Because we are under attack. And here's the thing. I was looking at this book earlier, right? Because I was going to talk a little bit, maybe, and I will. I want you to consider something. When the Declaration of Independence was written, I told you all of these historical documents that have been written with Black people in the background. Even though Thomas Jefferson and other of the founding fathers were slave owners, did you know that when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, you know, the fabulous Declaration of Independence that said that men were born with inalienable rights, right? The fabulous Declaration of Independence that proclaimed that they had the right to certain things, right? This same wonderful, wonderful document, right, that ends with all of these poetic words, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They were talking out both sides of their bodies, mouth and butt. And I'm gonna give you an example why. When they wrote that, they wrote, and I will quote it. They said, and this was them speaking about the king, he has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him. He's talking about slaves, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation. This piratical warfare, right? That's what they called it. The oppressor, the infidel of powers, the king, as not only did he bring them over here, this is what, and I'm paraphrasing now, he has prostituted his negative for suppressing each legislative attempt or to prohibit or to restrain this execrable commerce, and that this assembly of horrors might want no fact of distinguished die. Basically, all of the old English stuff aside, what he was saying is, you bought slaves over here and told us to suppress them. And now, because Britain had decided that slavery was illegal, you want to encourage the slaves to rise up against us and murder the very people who you put over them. So in one way, they were condemning the king for creating slavery, and then justifying their rule or their power over the slave by saying that it's still their right to hold these slaves and you shouldn't be turning those slaves against us. Illogical. But that's in your Declaration of Independence. But that's not what you hear. But nowhere, at least I'm still waiting, do I hear people talking about this. You can go pick up the Declaration of Independence. You could go look it up online yourself, and you can read it. Why do I say that? Because I don't put anything out to you that can't be validated. I don't put anything out to you that can't be validated. But if you sense a degree of frustration in me tonight, understand that for every little bit of history we teach you on Erudition, there's a whole delta that has not been a bottomless pit. Earlier tonight, when I got on, I talked about 1619, and some folks will say, well, Eddie, that's inconsiderate. Why would you say that? Why do you condemn 1619? Who sits around celebrating the anniversary of your enslavement? What culture does that? And does it without challenge? You could tell me, well, Eddie, I'm pressing a fact. Did you know by 1528 that there were more than 10,000, over 10,000 blacks in the New World? I said this last week. Over 10,000 blacks that were not, all of them were not slaves. As a matter of fact, as I told you last week, there were laws and things put out by Spain as early as 1501, telling folks, right, that the blacks, the Negroes, could not interact with the indigenous people because they made them rebellious. They made them rebellious. But here we are celebrating English slaves, rather they're indentured or chattel, arriving on some Dutch boat in 1619. And excluding the fact of our true origin over here. Excluding the fact that even a writer like Garcia del Montalvo, who published a book in 1510, a fiction about beautiful black women living in a made-up place called California on the west coast of the Americas. Who's teaching you this? Who's providing this knowledge to you? Fact-checking is the most important part about history. It makes sure that you are able to understand as well as teach others. Absolutely, my son. My frustration lately has risen to an alarm that goes off. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said it several times during this broadcast. We are under attack. They don't want your kids to know who they are, because it's detrimental to the feelings and emotions of white kids. Racial crimes are on the rise because in schools, for the better part of 50 years, we've still taught secondary people. I was on Mike and Phil's show last week, and I made the comment, and it needs to be said. What did you, For this last 30 minutes, let's talk about this. What does the Black person bring to the world, not just America? What do our ancestors bring to the world? What are we? What have we provided to the world? I will tell you that historians for decades, for centuries, have said nothing. We bring nothing. However, they know it's a lie. But I want to hear your opinion. Those few who are on tonight live, interact. What do we bring to the world? What is the gift of Black folks, as W.B. Du Bois said? What do Black people bring? What have we done? Type in anything. Anything you think that Blacks, doesn't matter if they're African or African American, wherever, what have we provided? And if you are offended with my straightforwardness tonight, with my curtness, I will apologize for your identifying me as being curt. I'm being very, very forceful to get you to understand this is no joke. This is no joke. What did Africans bring? It's a couple of you on here. Somebody type something in. What did we bring? Come on now. I'm sure you got some thought on it. Innovation and protection. Okay. Good point, Teddy. Attacks would stop when everyone realizes we're all concerned, connected. The things that attack parts of us impact all of us. Safety and comfort for white people, but I am late to the party, so it could be a bad answer. No bad answer, Tony. None. Thank you for showing up, man, and supporting us as always. He brought agriculture, machines, buildings. We even taught people how the clouds and the stars. Come on, my son. Worked in order to lead us home and predict the weather. Come on. That's a child who shows up every week, even though he knows his dad is sitting there talking about this all the time. He shows up and he's getting something from this as a young man. What he talked about right there was deterministic chaos theory. What he talked about, what Sean Anthony talked about right there, is the very thing that they use to predict your weather. Because chaos theory, right? Deterministic chaos, all that is used in Doppler radar, all that is used to show pattern, all that is fractal knowledge or supreme knowledge, as some people say it, all of that comes from Africans. But that's one thing. We bring life to the world. Without us, the world would be bland. Good point. Thank you for showing up, my brother. Good to see you. Let me tell you what we bring. Some of y'all right. Safety, comfort, protection. We bring that. But the other thing that we bring is wealth. We bring wealth. And however I'm not just talking about financial or physical wealth, gold and power. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm saying wealth. Wealth of knowledge, wealth of understanding, wealth of spiritual understanding. We bring that. And if you go look at it biblically, God bought the Israelites. He bought his people to be in the safety and the comfort of Africa. Because we bring all of those things you all talked about. Protection, love, all of that. Somebody I saw you earlier said we bring rhythm, we bring music, we bring vaccination, we bring things because we are blessed people. beyond 1619 slavery, beyond the enslavement of a people. We bring wealth. Let me give you an example. When the slaves were enslaved and bought over into chattel slavery in the Americas, they built this country off their backs, off their suffering. They were the wealth, actual wealth of this country. The banks wrote insurance policies. The banks in the North financed slavery in the South. The Southerners built their economy, built their livelihoods on the backs of Black people, even in their suffering. We bought wealth. Slave owners and slave masters would take their sick children to slaves who had what they thought, that's where the magic Negro idea comes, who had some amazing connection with God that they didn't have, to heal them with roots and understanding in a land that they were thousands of miles away from their own homeland. But that wealth of knowledge. The Maroons who left to go out and go interact with the indigenous people, who helped to grow further understanding of the indigenous people. They bought that wealth. When the Spanish came over in the 1500s and they sent blacks, Black explorers, Estevanico and different others, to go into the Americas first as the precursor to the conquistadors coming in, because they knew that the natives would talk to these Black people. We are wealthy, prosperous people, not some hyperbolic, fictional just statement to you. That's who we are. That's who our ancestors were. And to discharge them as only slaves is deceptive. It's wrong. It marginalizes us to yet again be secondary. White, racist, implicit bias explorers, archaeologists went over to Egypt to go dig up treasure that they knew was in Egypt, in Libya, in Algeria. They're still digging over in parts of Africa to understand how our ancestors did certain things. To this day. You see this head behind me that they say is an Olmec head from down in Mexico. But in the truth of the matter was, these heads were built to honor those Black explorers and people and travelers who came over and traded and taught. We know this to be a fact historically, even though for hundreds of years it was hidden from us. We know that the Arawaks took the knowledge that they learned from the Africans and it traveled all up the east coast of what we now call America. We have evidence of it in the way that they built their spears, in the way they grew their crops. But yet, we fixate ourselves on lies. Or lies. We tell ourselves that we're not that important. Oh, not just in words, but in our actions. In our actions. I don't hear too many people getting on and giving you a factual account based on what De Soto, based on what Estevanico, based on what Durantis, what these different peoples wrote about their explorations. I told you all last week that Black artisans and agriculturalists were down in South America helping to build towns, founding towns. This was not 1619. This 1555 to 1570. So why are we so fixated and caught up with the idea of focusing on enslaved people arriving here in 1619? Why are we devoting newspapers and documentaries and where historians consistently telling you so that you don't even know your own worth? The powers that plan is to cause the divide. They push slavery in our face to hate white people so we can never unite as one people. There's a lot of truth in that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. When you placate people, when you tell folks, let me be even more clear. If you were in a system where everybody told you, right, whether you agree with it or not, moralistically, intellectually, or spiritually, and they told you, hey, no matter what you do in here, you're going to get away with it. But that's not fair. Yeah, but you're going to get away with it. And so then you get in trouble, right? And you go, oh, man, I did something wrong. Now it's up to you to have the moral understanding to say, you know what? Nope, I need to be treated as equally as the people over here who are not being treated fairly. And, you know, let me tell you something. You make a very good point here. Something that I sat around last week when I was on Mike and Phil's show. And something that people, I'm going to push this a lot more. Democracy. Can somebody, the you that are on here right now, I know it's not a lot of you, but somebody tell me in one or two words, what is democracy? My sons will probably get this because we've talked about this, but what is democracy? What does democracy mean to you in one or two words? Come on. 1 or 2 words. Just type them in and tell me what does democracy mean to you? 1 or 2 words. What does it mean? And this is something we have to consider. I want you to take what okay? Sean Anthony said equal rights, okay? Tony said control, okay? Somebody else. Governed, okay? Come on, it's more than just 2 of them on here. Who else? Okay, Teddy. A government led by the people, okay? Anybody else? I'm gonna give you about 30 more seconds before I open this up for you. And while we're doing that, let me tell you, if you're on here tonight, if you missed the first 30 minutes, the first couple of minutes, yes, I am on the tirade tonight because we got to do better. We need to be sharing programs like this. We need to actually be teaching real history. There's so much going on out here, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on out here that a lot of us are blowing off. You watching your football, your basketball, you watching your Grammys, you're watching your Oscars, you're watching all of that. But what are you learning in a country where they're trying to take your rights every day, where they're trying to strip your children of education, of value, where they're trying to send us back 60 to 100 years in the past, where legislatures are actually saying that they want an apartheid system in Mississippi, where they are going to have a government that decides the fate of Black people like they did earlier in the 1900s. Faith Place said, having a voice in living decisions. Let me tell y'all what democracy, a lot of y'all are close, right? But there is a difference here in democracy. See, democracy in America was not something that was realized, right? It wasn't, you said voting system, the right to vote. Okay, good one. Here's the thing. When they wrote these wonderful documents that I talked about earlier, all of these lovely documents that they came up with, and you could go through pages and pages of these historical documents, Declaration of Independence and all of this stuff. But democracy was not a known thing. You want me to tell you what democracy meant to the European coming over here. Democracy in the world simply meant a transfer of privilege. Does that sound familiar? Privilege. We see that today. My privilege to walk out and do whatever I want to do in public because I have money, prestige, power, which provides me the opportunity to do whatever it is that I want. Actresses going in and stealing things out of stores, rich people going and violating folks sexually or stealing property and all of this. That's my privilege. I'm born, the idea of right of birth, because I'm born, I have the divine right of wealth to grow my industry, to grow my business. And once I do that, now I'm in another class system and I can do whatever I want. That is the democracy as explained by these men in their great writings of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. And because I read all of you all's comments here, Black people, that's not even close to what you think. To Black people, democracy, liberty, justice means exactly, I saw somebody put it in there, Sean Anthony said it, equal rights. I just want to be treated equally. So one dynamic of the American culture and historical understanding is privilege. And the African American and people of color's idea of it is equal rights. My ability to vote the same as you. My ability to be just like you. And they don't see it that way. The European power, people who came from monarchies, Germany, England, France, Spain, where the king and the queen allowed them to, because they were merchants or because they were wealthy, to have certain privileges in court. I am privileged. And we keep using this word privilege in society because God will not be mocked. It keeps coming back to us. I have the privilege to vote, but I'm going to deny you the privilege because it's not about equality. It's my privilege. I was given this privilege. I will die fighting for this privilege. Look at the Civil War. It's my privilege to choose somebody to die for me because I'm too wealthy to go die. No one is teaching this. We're not being taught this, ladies and gentlemen. And so if I seem a little terse in my teaching tonight, we are under attack. And we're online teaching lunacy. We got people telling folks the most lunatic stuff ever. Has nothing to do with what makes you a strong, wealthy people. The chattel slave, the Black man, the Black woman who labored in them fields from can't see to can't see, who cried to God for you, for me. And I dare say even the white people who were violating them. Lord, make it better. Look down, Lord. And they didn't want to conquer those people. They wanted what democracy was supposed to mean. They changed the term of what democracy was. If you do not believe that, go look at what Benjamin Franklin pointed out before he died, before he had to go see his Lord, in which he said that this is wrong. Or Patrick Henry, who had slaves, but later said it's repugnant to the first impression of right and wrong. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all these people writing about the fact that they knew slavery was wrong and didn't worry about it until they had to go meet their maker. We have to do better. The wealth of Black people As I like to say with W.B. Du Bois, from what he said, the gift of black folks. What did we provide? Because from those backs and those cries and those tears and that hurt, what did Lincoln say in the Gettysburg Address? Let's look that up right here. What did Lincoln say in the Gettysburg Address? Because Lincoln, upon seeing all of these young men dying and death everywhere, Lincoln dared to understand that this was God's judgment. And the reason why the Gettysburg Address is so important and it's quoted so often by so many people, right, is because when Lincoln says, right, it is for the living rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have fought here, have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave their full measure of devotion. They died for it. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish on the face of the earth. He understood the idea of what democracy was, because the lives of those slaves, of our ancestors, changed the mentality from privilege to equality. Because men like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. decided to give their lives, like Medgar Evers decided to die, because they knew that this world cannot survive, as Lincoln said, a house divided. We got to do better. I beg people every week to join us on Erudition. I beg them. Not for Eddie. I do it because we are under attack and we got to do better. We got to teach our kids better. I dare say we got to teach our older folks better. They have been conditioned to accept what they see and what they know to a point where it is destroying us. The wealth of our people is not just in physical wealth. While you out there trying to buy your $1,000 Beyonce tickets, while you trying to buy your Jordans, while you trying to look all glassified and glimmered up, they knew the wealth where it came from. As one of my sons said, when you can sit there and talk about deterministic chaos, when you can come out of the desert, out of the land of nothing, as they called it, and you could create mathematical knowledge that has advanced to the point where we can now shoot satellites into space. We can see other planets. We can look outside of this universe, but yet you don't understand your knowledge, your worth. There was a reason that I posted Thus a Black Woman Speaks last week. When B. Richardson talks about how they let the white babies suckle on the breast of Black women because they knew that her milk was much more nourishing. They knew her value. And then they would go so far as to say, you can't let my baby suckle on the same breast that you let your Negro baby suckle on. They would choose the breast. And as B said in her poem, them women, think about the strength of our Black women. They could have let them babies die, but they fed them because we better people than that. They fed them. They let them grow, and them same babies, when they grew into adulthood, berated, abused, murdered, and raped people that came out of their bodies. And yet here we are. When I beg you to simply share, to help us teach, to grow our knowledge. My wife and my kids see me. I'm reading all the time. I'm growing all the time. I'm trying because I know how serious this is. We started Erudition about 2 years ago. And when we started Erudition, we started it because God had told me, if you don't believe in God, I'm sorry for you. But God had showed me we need to be teaching our history, Eddie. I need you to do that. And I bucked it. I fought it because I didn't want to take that challenge. This was before we was talking about CRT, before pulling history out and book burning and this is before all of that. But I said, Father, I'm going to do what you told me to do. I'm going to do what you tasked me to do because I know we got to do better. And I'm going to share knowledge with our people. I'm going to share knowledge with our people whether they want it or not. It's difficult. It's really difficult for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate every one of you who show up. I appreciate every one of you every week who share these programs. But we got to do better. That's the moniker tonight. We got to do better. Hold on. I don't want anybody to think that I'm negative to you. I just have to make you understand. We are in a different world. We are in a challenge right now. We are in a place where if we don't do better, we're going to suffer. Tina, I'm sorry. Everyone must understand it's all of us, not just some of us, that these decisions and division is negatively impacting. Then we can be united in the desirable improvements. True. I completely agree. Yes, a serious conversation, my brother. We got to do better. Yes, Pastor Razor, we have to do better. Did you see the videos of white teenagers making fun of black people and painting a white girl black with her saying, I'm proud to be black? Haters, it's on the rise. It's affecting us in so many different ways. It's affecting the way our children think even about themselves. And yet, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. I want you to grow, and I want to grow with you. That's what I always tell people. Let's learn together. Let's be better people together. Somebody said, I think they even said it, that, you know, it's to keep us divided. Keep us divided. We got to do better. You know, there was an estimate I saw the other day. I was reading, one of my friends had sent me a couple of books. And I'm going to tell y'all something. This is such a crazy amount. And in the book, I took the quote down. This, which is so often looked upon as passive calamity, talking about the slave trade, was one of the most terrible and vindictive and unceasing struggles against misfortune that a group of human beings ever put forth. The truth is, it cost Africa perhaps 60 million souls to land 10 million slaves in the Americas. 60, that's an average. 60 million souls for the 10 million slaves that were in the Americas. And we don't do right by our ancestors if we don't teach the truth, if we don't look at the facts. And I want us to do that. I'm dedicated to making sure we do that. I don't want to go too far over our hour, but I wanted to make this very clear to you all who watched tonight, who gave us your time in the interactive. I appreciate it. You know, Tony, here's the thing about DeSantis. DeSantis is just the impetus of what's going on. When I heard the report today about what the legislature in Mississippi is doing, in Jackson, Mississippi, I was disgusted but not surprised. That they want an apartheid system in Mississippi should surprise no one. But the bleed over of oppression that is happening in the South is only permissible because the other states allow these states to be oppressive to other people. Because we don't challenge the federal government to step in. Because they want to show that they have dictatorship over, by statute over the states. It's not surprising that black men and black women are assaulted, killed, and murdered by the police force, some who look just like them. Do enough research into your history, and you will find that there were a lot of Negro slaves who actually told. Look about Denmark Vesey when they wanted to have their uprising. It was slaves who told people what they were planning to do. When they wanted to go hunt down indigenous people in this country, they went and got the civilized tribes, the Cherokee, the Seminoles, and others, to go in and go after the Crow, to go look after the very Negroes who were escaping off of the plantations. They killed indigenous and black people. And there were others who told exactly where they were. And in order to protect where they were going back and forth from, they had to kill some of their own people. It's an unfortunate history. When I looked at the Mississippi legislature, there were 2 black people sitting on the Mississippi legislature who voted for this apartheid type law. We got to open our eyes. I'm going to end this session, if you will give me 5 more of your minutes, by talking about something else that came up this week. If you will notice in the country, there are a lot of young people black young people who are educated, smart, records with the IQ test, even though I don't like IQ tests. And so I was watching a 9-year-old who just graduated out of high school. He was on one of the news programs with Don Lemon. And I thought Don Lemon, and me and my wife thought he was a jerk in talking to this family. But the point was, this 9-year-old exceptional boy who wants to be an astrophysicist, one thing that they said, because I like to hear things and think outside the box, that he's a part of Mensa. Now, I don't hate on anything, but I will tell you that I have a problem with what we're doing in this country with our intelligent, academically advanced young people. If we don't mentor them in our communities, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to leave our communities and they're going to become the batteries, as they have been historically, for white think tanks, corporate groups that will help to benefit outside of our communities by stealing the intellect and the genius out of our communities. And if you go read Malcolm X's autobiography of Malcolm X, and you read how Malcolm talked about the pimps, pushers, and number runners in Harlem, some of them were stone cold geniuses, mathematical geniuses. But they were pulled out of the community or put into a situation where they were criminals because that's how they had to make their money. When you look at the Hidden Figures women who helped to get the men to the moon, but it's not just the moon that helped you to understand the lift and the equations and everything you needed to get out off of this planet, to defeat the gravity of this planet, to use elliptical orbit to get where you needed to be and to get back. They take our intellect. There's a reason why Henry Ford was friends with George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver, down in Tuskegee. Henry Ford made 2 trips a year to go see that man, to sample his genius. We are not growing our children, our youth. We're not mentoring. I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson was on talking to this young boy, and I saw him light up when he saw his hero. Grow that knowledge in your community. Stop allowing kids who are exceptional to be pulled into these special interest groups and to these functions that are not going to help them, that are pulling them out of, just like they do with your athletes. All of your prodigies, they steal them, they yank them. Then you get mad because they married to somebody that's white, or they marry outside of their race, or they don't associate with their race. But what have we done to help them to understand there's value in us? I'm going to tell you something. I have 149 IQ. I don't tell people that. I think it's the first time I've ever said it publicly to anybody. But I would never join any of these groups because they're not benefiting my people. We got to do better. That's the last jewel I wanted to drop on y'all tonight. I thank you for your little extra minutes. I know it's about 10 minutes after. Thank you. Please share this episode. Help us grow Erudition. Tina will be back on Monday. Help us to grow this channel. It's so much out here that ain't helping nobody, ladies and gentlemen. This is free. Yeah, we put a donation taker down there, but this is free. I get on every Thursday. She gets on every Monday because we know that people need the help, the encouragement. Subscribe. Watch the full episodes. Go back. Watch the old episodes. If you think that I didn't cover something, send a message to me. People will tell you I will answer you. And I'll send you to an episode. Hey, man, I talked about that 3 weeks ago. I talked about that 2 months ago. Watch that. Come back to me and we'll talk about it. I'll even invite you on the show to talk about it. Let's do better. Let's grow this network. I'm doing what I can, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing what I can. I give my time. Please help me. Help us to help each other. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to let y'all go. I know other things going on tonight. You all have a blessed and wonderful rest of your week. And I hope that you share this episode and bring other people to come in and watch Erudition. We'll see you again next Thursday. Thank you so much.